page. I don't see the, oh yeah, now I see it. And now it says it's live. And it's saying that it will be online in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Page, I don't
Oh
see.
no,
It's all live. It's all live.
it says it's live.
So,
And it's saying that it will be online in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Page, I don't
oh
see.
it's all live. It's all live.
It says it's live. So,
Okay, I
it's
hear my own voice with 30 seconds delay.
page, it's all live.
Yes, I hear too. We delay.
Okay, now it seems that it's fixed. So, welcome everybody for the evening number 1 of KATAKOMBE. My name is Victor Sardenberg. I will be your master of ceremonies tonight. And I will briefly introduce our event and our guests for this night. So, what is KATAKOMBE? It is an alumni organized event at the Social Architecture class. It started on 2018, a very long time ago, when the world was completely different. Our idea back then was to experiment with the format of the lecture to make it basically not boring. And I believe it has succeeded well. And now, with all the changes that happened in the last 2 years, well, we are in the end of 2020, a year that everything has changed. We have a new challenge, which is to make the webinar not boring. So first of all, I would like to thank everybody that is joining us. You are all facing a screen again, but we are sure that this time it will be something very special and very fun. So we have more than 100 watchers, let's say, an audience from places from LA, from South America, São Paulo, from India, from Korea, and we are all together on the first evening of KATAKOMBE 2020 and 2021. We will have 3 evenings for 3 different time zones. We decided that we would take the opportunity of the webinar to make it a global event and reach large audience around the globe. So each of the evenings will be planned or will happen in a different time zone. So tonight we are in the time zone for Europe and Africa. In 2 weeks on 12th December, we will have the second event for the time zone of the Americas. And finally, in January, we're going to have the time zone for the Asian continent. So one way that we thought that we could make it not boring was inspired by the Parisian salons from the 19th century, where invited artists, intellectuals, scientists would present new ideas and fresh work for acquaintance in a very informal way. and we are trying to replicate it. So I invite everybody to have a glass of wine or the drink of your choice. And following this inspiration, we are making this event a multi-sensorial experience. And I think it will be clear now when I introduce the schedule for this evening. So we're going to start with Milos Nikolic that will present a multi-channel video of a rehearsal of the Balkan North Choir for around 20 minutes. Then we're gonna have Ksenia Leonovich that is invited us all for a culinary performance called Curated Carpaccio for another 20 minutes. We're gonna follow with Stefano Gadotti from São Paulo, who will talk about his process of making drawings for another 20 minutes. And we're gonna finalize with a video performance by the inventor Gabriel Lester from Amsterdam entitled Intention by Proxy. So, two things. The first one is that for those that will participate live and share the screen to prepare their own carpaccios, it's important that your Zoom name matches the name that you registered. So we can cherry pick you and put you sharing your screen or your camera. And the other important thing for technical reasons is that the first presentation of tonight, I would highly recommend you to use earbuds or headphones, something that you can hear very well on stereo. So we start tonight with Milos Nikolic. He is an alumni from the Stadelschule architecture class. And please, Milos, the screen is all yours.
Hello, Victor. Thank you, everybody. Thanks you for this amazing announcement. I would like to thank you personally for invitation of this Catacombe program year. Also Jonathan and Lukai, who also invited me to participate, and I'm really honored. So as the name of the project says, Towards Polyphonia, actually polyphony in English, it's about music program, but just as a first glance. So let's start with one explanation of what does polyphony present as a music term. Polyphony is, in music is a type of musical texture of simultaneous combination of at least two, but usually more tones or melodic lines. The term derives from a Greek word of poly, that means many, and phonia, that means sounds. So in other words, polyphony is a style of simultaneous combining a number of individual melody which are mutually harmonized. Of course, each of these melodic lines can exist separate and independent of other melodic lines. And if we observe it independently, it will present a whole for itself, and our effect will be totally different from hearing it in the complex system of harmony with other melodic lines. So polyphony, in polyphony, each melodic line is actually part of the whole harmonized system. That was a short explanation of what is polyphony for those who are not musicians. And I would like to follow with words that in this video that I'm going to present tonight, choir members of Balkan North Choir from Oslo recorded their rehearsal. The main emphasis has been placed on the process of assembling, creating, and composing a polyphonic choral composition by separating individual choral voices. What is shown here in this project is the process of preparation music piece for performance on the stage, but not final performance by itself, just to point it out, to make it clear. So this video incorporates elements of the single motion of each participant and determined split polyphony sound with multisensory, physical, ocular, audio, and subjective experience of everybody included in a simultaneous score representing the polyphony of concurrent action. I would like to share with you some of my personal experience and try to make parallel with this project. So first one is back to my childhood, when I was a really small kid, and when I just started to become conscious of myself and my presence in the world. I remember the days when I was going with my granny in long walks around the city. And I often asked her to hold my hand and navigate me, to tell me where to step, what to do, and so on, while I kept my eyes completely closed. That was some kind of game for me. But walking along her by holding her hand, I received sounds from outer world, and of course her navigation words. So I was able to make some kind of picture in my mind of the space where we were at that point of time. And later on, through my experience in choir, where I used to, in choirs actually, where I used to sing for many, many years, I experienced some kind of similar sound space relations. Standing on the stage and singing in the concert hall, blinded by the light of the stage, you produce the sounds, and as a reward, you heard the space by echo of that melody that you produced. And at the end of performance, as a second time, still blinded by the same light of the stage, you hear the space again, but now not anymore as a performer, but as an audience. You receive applause of new performance, actually of audience. So this applause, the sound lasts, and you can experience the space by hearing. You realize how much the space is big, deep, high, wide, and so on, maybe full or empty, but you cannot see the space because of the light. So these two examples of personal experience lead us to multisensory spatial understanding, which was kind of guide for making this video. We perceive the world around us through simultaneous use of all senses. But in modern society, the visual perceptions has been heavily and disproportionately favored. And this has been at the expenses of depriving ourselves of the potential capacity of other senses. In this case, aural senses of perceiving and measuring the space. The ambiguity and vagueness associated with other sensory experience allows the imaginative mind to dream and create its own vision of reality that is inspiring and generative as well. I would like to share some of my questions. If we are to expand our perception horizon, if we are to feel space, and if we are to enjoy a sense of delight in architecture, not only should we appreciate the capacity of our senses and learn to experience space in a holistic way, but also our almost exclusive reliance of visual perceptions in the process of design could be replaced with the recognition of full spectrum or perceptual capacity of our senses. I would like to end with the words that the whole process of choir rehearsal was recorded through experience of every single singer and conductor as well. By the construction of the visual space in this video, singers' mutual interactions lead us to not just assemblage of one polyphonic musical choral piece, but also to polyphony of multisenses. And at the very end, give me a few more seconds to say extremely big thanks to all my friends from Balkan North Choir from Oslo who did amazing job by recording videos personally. Of course, huge thanks to my best friend there, Milivojevic, who is the leader and conductor of this amazing ensemble. And at the end, but not at the least, huge thanks to my sister, Biljana Nikolic, who helped me and took a very big part in editing of this video. So one more time, I'm inviting you to see the video and put your headphones, enjoy hearing the space and seeing how music is born. Thank you very much. Victor?
Yep, here we go.
Soprano stemma mi mu altovi. Mame mi mu muški. Mame mi mu tenori do kraja basi. Mame mi mu prove ne treba ništa da vrisnemo, okej? Možemo da pevamo?
Može.
Znači, sad uzemo jedan.
Sandalu.
I probat ćemo... Posila se šajka mala parka. Možemo probamo ženski hor jednom samo. Ženski počinje, samo žena.
Treba i koza.
Šta?
Treba i koza.
Ne treba, samo ovo, okej? Soprani samo. Vozila se... 3, sopran,
Vozila se šajka mala parka.
Super, probaj samo... Vozi... Više samo tu tercu, okej?
Kaži.
Više tercu, 3 još jednom. I svaki?
Vozila se šajka mala parka.
Drži ga. Okej, altovi. Vozila se, altovi 3,
Vozila se šajka mala parka.
Probaj samo da bude, da se čuje ove šestine. Mala parka, da se čuje šestine malo lepše. Žene zajedno, 3,
Vozila se šajka mala parka.
Super, i bez ritenuta, smo rekli uvijek, vaš? Probajte ženom bez ritenuta i probajte svaku da bude kao parka, žuljama već po čelu. 3,
Vozila se šajka mala parka.
Super. I mali decrescendo, fade out do muških. Momci, može muški hor, 3, 2, puna šajka.
Puna šajka mladih djevojaka.
Kraće, slobodno kao, Vlado, nemoj da ti propadne ja. Jesi jedine, veš? Nemoj da ideš od te decrescendo da ga vratiš, zato što onda propadne, nemamo melodiju uopšte, okej? Još jedno, muški hor, napravite crescendo, decrescendo. Puna šajka mladi i malo napred. 3,
Puna šajka mladih djevojaka.
Ok, super. Žene, šajka i dalje. Šajka ili barka?
Šajka.
3,
Šajka ime osoboga zlata.
Zajedno.
Šajka ime osoboga zlata.
Tenori. Šajka, mislim sad mi za Miloš, ovo je za nas. Šajka im je ocu. Onda se čuje tema, imate po 4 teme. Šajka im je. Onda oni preuzimaju temu, ali veš? Pa probajte malo. Bojna, ruki fisi samo da glasmo, možeš? Dobro. Šajka im je, basi. Šajka im je, ajde se gasi. Možemo svi zajedno, taj pretposljednji takt na prvoj strani. Šajka im je, zgazi fis. Ovaj gornji pust, veš? I onda razvi. Altovi, basi, tenori, sopran, 3, Šajka im je osoboga zlata. Super, soprani. Šajka im je razlika, okej? I pustite skok oktave, malo bilo, nešto bilo okružavac.
Pa nismo ni znali gdje smo.
Tu smo. Polja ne vidi ništa. Ajde še. Može isto mesto? 3, tenori super. 3, 2, 3, š. Šajka je osoboga zlata. Forte.
Vesla su im srebrom posrebreno.
I sada.
Maću žig.
3, 2, 3,
Vozila se šajka malovača.
Puna šajka mladih djevojaka.
Šajka im je osoboga zlata.
tenori.
Šajka im je osoboga zlata.
Forte, svaka.
Vesla su im srebrom posrebreno.
Slušajte tenore, pa razite u forte.
Anica djevojka.
Dalje. Malo glavicu.
Jezra su im srebrom posrebreno. A kapite anica
Kolega, 3 zadnje strane.
I onda ovo znamo.
Majka Maru preko mora zvala, majka Maru preko mora zvala. Okej? Majka, vi počnete u stvari pesmu od luka. Okej? Mislim, što pevate prvi, ali je ovamo tema, ne poznate, okej? Majka. Možemo samo da probamo to, isto da on ima utisak tog dijaloga između muških i ženskih i soprani i alta. Soprani. Majka Maru preko mora zvala. Probaj, jedan, sopran samo. 3, 2, 3,
Majka Maru preko mora zvala, Majka Maru preko mora zvala.
Super. I malo narodnog motiva u vašem prevodu. Majka Maru preko mora zvala, Majka Maru preko... Ne toliko. Ne toliko, da, ali ne toliko, već? Razumete? Malo samo da se čuje da je ipak ovo narodna pesma. Ali tu možete samo vi. Majka Maru preko mora zvala, Majka Maru preko mora zvala. Majka
Maru preko mora zvala, Majka Maru preko mora zvala.
Ja malo prljavo, veš? Još jedno, može? Jedan, dva, sopran.
Majka Maru preko mora zvala, Majka Maru preko mora zvala.
Super. Muški kor jednom samo. Prvi tenor, drugi tenor, bariton. Jedan, dva, tri,
Majka Maru smo razvala, Majka Maru zvala.
A vas dvojica pa ne odvojite. Prvi tenor, drugi bariton, bas. Jedan, dva, tri,
Majka Maru smo razvala, Majka Maru pozvala.
Super. Svi zajedno, zvali. Sopran, pa, prvi tenor, drugi tenor. Bariton, bas, Jesseko. Jedan, dva, a to je dokument još za koronu ili onako?
Moramo da slikamo, moramo da imamo.
Ja sam zli, da, slikati. Ali moramo posle da napravimo slikam.
Ovo će da me prostreli kroz mozak.
Ovo sa ovim, sa ovim ekranom, pa da kad skinemo da ne moramo.
Probaj mi glavu. Ajde.
Tenor, tenor, bas. Što da mi falš? No to je nisko.
Nije. To je falš.
Ne, to je falš.
Sad sam ja falš.
Visoko ti je. Ajde. Tenor si visoko.
Pa ja sam dala, on je rekao da sam ja niska, ali to je bilo dobro.
Da.
Pa daj više tu tercu malo.
Pa nemoj više, pa velika terca, mislim, duza
Ma
terca.
znam, nego mi je... Ne znam, ajde. Izvoli.
Terca mi je mala i više.
Ajde.
Jedan, dva, tri,
Majka Maru preko mora zvala, Majka Maru preko mora zvala.
Super. Muški, ne možete samo da imate.
Ja sam kao drugi track.
Da traje, ali imali akcent na to. Majka Maru. I ja na prvi put, okej? Jedan, dva, tri, a čekaj. Prvi, drugi. Ne, svi zajedno. Ja nisam visok sad. No ja sam inače nijako nisam.
Ajde, brate, sinus mi proradio. Opa, da, to je možda. Skrenut ću da se vidim.
Ajmo, samo to, izvoli. Jedan, dva. Jedan, dva, tri,
Majka Maru preko mora zvala, Majka Maru preko mora zvala.
Meco.
Jesi mare te rube oprala, jesi mare te rube oprala. Nisam majko dečko, sam počela, nisam majko dečko, sam počela. Šta si mare lepi, ranjela, šta si mare lepi, da me lala. Primoru sam ružice trgala, primoru sam ružice trgala. Puna nedra i ova rukava, puna nedra i ova rukava.
Wow, Milos. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this performance. Not you personally, but all of you. Thank you very much.
Not me personally. Okay. Okay.
You, of course, but
And I apologize to use my voice now after such a beautiful polyphonic experience.
it's fine. We are familiar with your voice.
Thank
And
you.
I know that you are musicians, that you play guitar, so everything is fine.
Now, from audiovisual experience, we try to bring other sense also. So you start to see a lot of faces here on Zoom. From the 100 people that registered for our event, a good portion of them registered declared that they would like to participate in the culinary performance that Ksenia Leonovich will start soon. So Ksenia is also an alumni of Studienschule, and now she is studying her master's on gastronomy. So she's working on the intersection between the culinary arts and architecture. And she is very interested in improvisation. And she invited us all for this culinary performance with improvisation of ingredients. So Anna and Jonathan, do you have our guests to share the screen to cook with us?
Yes, they are here. But we would like to let Ksenia first to say some words, and meanwhile we can add the participants.
Perfect. Ksenia, the screen is yours.
Hello. Do you hear me well? I just want to check.
Perfect.
So I'm very happy to welcome everyone to our creative cooking session. Today, the focus is going to be on ingredients that we've sent out to our participants. We're all going to have a very different range of produce, and we're going to work with it or play with it as those are instruments or those are colors. So we're going to layer them upon each other to eventually end up with a dish called carpaccio. And we follow this kind of no recipe improvisational flow where we emphasize the sensation of discovery. This is eventually what you're going to end up with. And we look into our ingredients and we listen to them. So we give them a certain amount of care and love, and therefore I tend to call the session intimate. We do this exercise for our intuition, to boost our intuition. So it's very reflective of your very own state of mind. We're trying to make logic out of house, if I can say so. And improvisation in general is a direct composition. So we're searching for a certain type of innovation here in this performance. We are enhancing culinary creativity. This is also why I picked up this dish. So we can improvise together, and instead of doing something, instead of following some rigid scenario, a certain recipe, it's very different cooking session. We're adding a variety to standardized process of cooking. So again, we are looking for a certain novelty here. Just a small introduction of what carpaccio is. The origin of the dish is based here in Piedmont, where in Italy, in Bra. It's a rustic appetizer from the area, which was originally called carne cruda all'albese, which is the nearby town of Alba. It's based, And originally, those are raw pieces of meat that served with olive oil, lemon juice, salt, and pepper. So it allows for very gentle cooking. The artistic link or performative link to this dish is, again, I find it interesting that the dish was called after a painter, Vittorio Carpaccio, from 1500s. And he had this heavy usage of red and white paint in his drawings, which were representative of meat and milk and mayonnaise that were used back in the original recipe. Today we look into flavors, textures, and colors. So it's, if you please, kind of jazz improvisation. You can think of jazz where we're layering one melody or one chord upon each other. We're combining them and give them a solo moment to shine. The protein and fiber of our dish will be gently cured and fermented in acid, oil of certain type, and salt and sugar. So we follow the idea of original carpaccio, but do it with raw ingredients and vegetables and fruits. And I hope you all got time to pick your ingredients. And yeah, we can start cooking if everyone is more or less ready. I ask maybe to get a paper towel or a certain towel because you want a clean cut, so you can clean your knife in between the ingredients. This is it.
I would like to ask everybody that is in the Zoom room if you are comfortable to turn on your cameras and feel welcome to share your cooking experience with our first.
I would love to know if people are with me. And
hi, Xenia, Anna here.
Hi everyone.
I will have difficulties cooking and turning my screen on, so I will be invisible, but I will be on audio.
Okay.
I'm also here, Philip. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Hello. I know that there are some friends of mine following the session. Very happy to be with you guys. So on your ingredients list, there was a main ingredient, which we all have a different. I have a persimmon. You might have any other one. And please no panic, because we all have different ingredients, therefore we will operate them differently. We just look at them very close and think, if we start with main ingredient, how we want to cut it, because this will eventually become the canvas for our dish, or recurring melody, if we can say so. So if you look at your ingredient, and maybe you can think of a memory that you ever ate this ingredient in a certain form. Maybe you want to cut it this way or that way. So I'm looking at the persimmon, and I think the most beautiful section would be the horizontal one, the circular. So let's start. We cut them very thin. If you have mandolin, it's amazing. If you don't, we just try to cut them quite thin. If not, it's also not a problem. You can do however you like. This is the purpose of our session. And maybe you want to start arranging your dish immediately while you cut your ingredient. So again, the arrangement on the dish is just following your own preference and your own creative flow. And we're not looking for perfection in this exercise because we are not chefs and we're not in the restaurant. So we're cooking for ourselves. So as you can see, my cuts are not that thin, but I'm not worried about that. You can tell me how you're doing. I will hear you. If you have any sort of question coming up, you can also intervene.
Yeah, it's a collective.
I'm cutting red beet.
Did you cook your beet? Or it's raw?
It's raw.
Amazing. Yeah, we try to follow the, if we can say, sustainable approach. So we try to not to use meat. We try to work with what is seasonal and what is local. So now it's a festive season and persimmon is very much everywhere here in Piedmont. Then the second texture that I would love to highlight, which will bring a bit more luxury and it will smooth it out, our dish. It will maybe have a bit more fat. So I decided on using hazelnuts. And of course, you pick the ingredient that you before thought of. We have nuts, we have dairy, we have different fruits in that category. So again, you look at your ingredient and you think, how do you want to arrange it on top of our first layer? So I think I'm gonna chop my hazelnuts because I want to see the sections.
I have feta cheese, right? This is the same group.
See. And please be as free as you can with aesthetics here, because it's all about practicing your intuitive cooking. And the more you practice, the freer you are and you can go as crazy as you want. The third category was crunchy. Here we try to enhance the watery, the like the brightness, the popping, the fresh texture, and which is more fun. I picked fennel. Here you can see my fennel already is being in use. So it's again, like we're not, it's not a very fancy cooking session. So I'm just using ingredients I have in my fridge. And you can always make up carpaccio from whatever you have in your fridge. Just maybe thinking and playing.
Okay, I have an apple for this. How would you cut it? Thinly as well.
You are very free to cut it as you want. You can even do the cubes because it depends how, like what do you want to achieve when you bite into an apple? Maybe you want a crazy kick or you want a mouthful of an apple. So you would really want to, you know, have a full apple experience. So I'm thinking something like this. So again, like, and you can think of the, like how the texture of the persimmon and the hazelnut and the fennel will work together, because persimmon is very sweet. Hazelnut has this caramelly, almost smoky flavor, and fennel is quite fresh and bright and yeah. I think they should work together. Okay. Moving on to our sulfurs and mustardy section, where you had probably strange ingredients you might thought for the carpaccio, but it's again to highlight the flavors of all other ingredients. So arugula, in my case, would bring some bitterness and maybe peppery feeling. So you want something to counterpart the ingredients on your plate.
What do you think about garlic? Adding garlic now to apples and to...
Yes, because it will, like, the garlic will enhance the flavors of other ingredients. You just maybe want to very, very thinly slice it, or you maybe want to use, if you have near your hand a microplane or something like that. So I'm thinking also with the arrangement on the dish, even though arugula is quite thin and long, I even want it to be more feather-like.
You need to catch up on you.
Excuse me?
I think some people are not cutting as fast as you, so they need
Okay. Okay, I can wait. Please tell me if you follow the pace or if you, where are you? Are you with me or behind?
I am.
Okay.
I'm with you too.
say yes. Miriam say yes.
I'm in the crunchy part, but I'm moving fast.
Okay, okay, okay. I can wait for a second. So why are we layering so many different ingredients is because we want all them to bloom in our mouth. When we bite into a dish, we have this very different sweet, savory, tart, pungent, acidic moments, and we let them all invade our mouth and perform in our mouth. As again in in jazz, we want all of them to highlight, to have a solo, but at the same time, all of them together, they create a certain harmony. And so you can arrange your mustardy ingredient on a dish. Then maybe you want it to be not, like I'm arranging it in a certain way because I'm thinking how I'm gonna be approaching my dish. You can have a very different arrangement because you maybe want sometimes a lot of textures in one bite and sometimes you want just one ingredient like here. The herbaceous and floral ingredient, in my case, that would be sage, because I think sage it will give this kind of medicinal note. And it's also, in my opinion, goes well with persimmon, but you work with the ingredient that you picked. You can tell me what you picked. And what are the other ingredients that you have on your plate?
I have basil. And I have red beets and apples and feta and garlic.
Well, basil, feta, and garlic already sounds fantastic. Then you will have the sweetness of an apple and this autumnish beetroot mood. Beetroot and garlic also amazing.
Zucchini, feta, apple, ginger.
Perfect. This is so fun. I think what is great is that we all will end up with different dishes. Like we're not gonna, make spaghetti bolognese and all eat the same spaghetti bolognese. We will have so many different paintings or pieces of music that we all will enjoy with our wines. I hope everyone is drinking the wine. How are you doing, guys? Are you with me?
Yes,
I
we're
am.
trying to catch up.
Maybe a bit more. When we introduce... Yes, yes. Someone started talking? No? No. Okay. When we introduce spices, you maybe want to think of location. You know, where this dish is bringing you when you put on the spice. Because I picked sumac for the very kind of exotic moment that I want to feel or experience. And it gives us this like dusty, sparkly mood. Or again, like it's very interesting to bite into the spice itself because it's very different sensation.
I'm thinking cumin or cinnamon. What would you do?
This is the dish with beetroot.
Yeah.
Cumin. Cumin would be great.
Okay.
Because cumin and garlic is one of the very good combinations.
So Stefano is making a tobacco carpaccio.
Are you enjoying, Stefano? I hope you do. So thinking of sweet, we maybe want to introduce this liquid texture, something gooey, something toffee-like, the spills of other color that will maybe glue our dish somehow. And it will balance eventually the acidity and saltiness that we add further. So I chose the Millefiori honey. It's very strong in taste. So also persimmon in my case is very sweet. So the way I will put honey on the dish would be just on the top because I don't want to touch the persimmon, which is very sweet already. You guys are doing something else, agave, date, maple, or just sprinkles of sugar also work. We just need that binding component and balancing component.
I'm using fennel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I'm using maple syrup and celery. Do you think that works?
It does. It's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
You just need peanut butter for it. That would be it.
I can get some
later on. A spoonful. See. Talking about acidity, which is our kick and cooking agent, we add the depth of flavor to all our ingredients on the dish because lemony acidity or vinegar, it brings up the flavor of the ingredient itself. So everything is more bright and vivid. Today I found bergamot in the market. I mean, we can also use lime, or we can use lemon, or you can use vinegar of your choice. If you use vinegar, you probably want to have 1 teaspoon of it on top, or 1.5. If you use a lemon or any citrus juices, you probably want to double that amount. But since we're doing everything, you know, we're following our eye or our feeling. So maybe you just want to have it to go, and you can always fix not like fix, but to balance your dish out. Smells incredible. Are you guys with me?
Yes.
Yes,
Good.
we are.
This is perfect. I'm so excited for you to try your dishes later. And the fat.
We haven't finished it yet. There is time because we need like.
Can you please repeat? Are you not there yet? Are you good?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Sorry, you'll hear a little bit of Marathi in between.
Okay.
That's
Okay. Good.
I'll try to mute, but yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you picked probably an oil or fat of your choice. We had avocado oil, grape oil, olive oil, and sunflower. Maybe sunflower and olive oil are more strong in taste, but we want this fat to give us a coat and dress.
Creamy layer मध्ये.
Jitendra.
That's me. Excuse.
Yes, it's okay. You can now coat your dish with a fat. It immediately gives it such a beautiful, sparkly look. So the flavor and nutritious qualities of oil, they stay with us. We don't cook the oil, so it's all the monounsaturated fats that we find so healthy. They are there, and it gives our dish immediate richness. And here we are. So to finalize it, we probably want to salt it, because I didn't add salt yet. So I'm just mostly sprinkling salt on top of persimmon because it's sweet. So I want to counterpart with salt. And if you have like beetroot, you want to put maybe salt on your beetroot because beetroot is a bit sweet. Or if you're using apple, maybe you want to put salt on your apple, because salt in general, it makes vegetable more juicy and sweets more sweeter. So it makes the food taste like itself. It enhances the flavors of food. And I probably will use a bit of black pepper, because pepper is stimulating our saliva. We start to experience flavors more fully as well. So I want this dish to, pop in my mouth. So I will add a bit. Here we go. I hope you guys are with me and you're finishing your beautiful carpaccios. So this spontaneous culinary procedure where we follow our imagination, or we do not follow the recipe, we just focus on the ingredient and we work with the ingredient and start to arrange and combine them together. It's all to stimulate your imagination, which is more productive and less reproductive process as in normal follow the recipe situation. It, I think, raises up those questions of temporality, and when your attention is present, it's a certain type of meditation, and afterwards you can feed your loved ones, or you can have a beautiful meal by yourself. You can always do it with whatever ingredient you have at home. Of course, you can use less of textures and ingredients, and it can be something very simple. Yeah. So I very much would love to ask you to send a picture of your dish afterwards the session to my email that you got the ingredients list, and we can exchange. And maybe at the end, I would love to make like collaborative communal picture of all of the carpaccios that we made today. if you don't mind. Are you good, guys?
I have mine here already, tasting it, in fact. It's delicious.
What did you put? What are the ingredients?
I was cheating, in fact.
Did you order carpaccio from the restaurant?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Take a picture.
I have some tasks too.
Victor, take a picture of your carpaccio.
Yes, please.
I will.
You will. Okay.
So are we all on the same page? Are we all?
Okay, I see you guys. It's so beautiful. One. So good.
Sorry, I really don't know. Just to participate. You tried a lot.
It's okay. You're going there. We will try more maybe. I hope you had fun, and I hope you will continue to practice and follow your imagination. And our next session during the second event will be ceviche. We will continue the theme of raw cooking. So I really hope you can join. Maybe it will be a bit different format. Yeah, so that was it, and I hope you enjoyed.
I think we can all thank you, Ksenia.
Thank you guys for joining. It's I hope all the dishes taste good and you had fun and you can take this experience further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have more than just wine and drinks. Now we also have some food.
And if you like the session, you should join the session, the ceviche session, right?
Yeah.
So now that we all have something to taste, I think we can go to talk with Stefano Gadotti. Stefano is an artist from São Paulo, and he will share with us some of his work, and he will talk a little bit about his process of making drawings and how drawings is for him and for most of architects and artists an essential tool for thinking and for creation. So Stefano, feel welcome and the screen is yours.
Thank you, Victor. I'm hungry actually after all this food she was doing. Very nice. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. For me, it's very difficult to talk about my work. And I choose a very small selection of 150 images, just drawings. And after that, I'm gonna do a drawing for you, okay? It's quite simple. Okay, here you go. It's working, the screen? Yeah, okay. It's all made by hand. In these years, I'm practicing my work. The structure is the ideas for sculptors, the base for doing after draws in the computer. simple things, sometimes a little bit more complex, colors or not colors, lines, a lot of lines, the structure of the base of the ideas. The scale, it's a kind of, well, sometimes the drawings are small or sometimes they are bigger.
A lot of what I see, Stefano, makes me think about 3D meshes when you see only the polylines of it.
Yes.
Do you think about it also?
Yeah, sometimes sometimes the draw it's faster, and then we can try to do things more complex with some kind of machines or softwares too. Bigger draws, some images from old ateliers, varies.
So do you inhabit these drawings? Do you
What?
Do you live inside these drawings somehow?
Yes, every day. Here in São Paulo, in a gallery here, in a house made by Paulo Mendes da Rocha. My room. Different techniques, different supports, different pens. My garden, my glass, my metal sheet, small drawers. Detail. My wall. In the house of a client. And selling.
So for me, it's very funny because I know well your work, but you are showing always work in progress pictures, as if it's never finished.
There's yes, there's the things I finished already, but there's another works are still in process. Now this is a new series I'm doing, acrylic sheet, 3 mm, and then canvas with aluminum chair. Yes, that's it. And now my idea was to do a draw here in a glass. That's fine?
Yeah, please feel very welcome. But maybe you should stop sharing your screen before you start.
What?
Maybe you should stop sharing your screen before you start.
Yes, that's true. Okay.
So when you are drawing, you are thinking about flat surface, or you are imagining it in space? Or maybe he doesn't hear me now. And Jonathan is having a lot of fun.
Anyway, if he imagines space, it's multi-layered. Even the way how he present this drawing that are doing now.
It's true. What I think it's amazing is that he comes from a tradition of architecture and 3D digital modeling. And he chose to go to a very different tradition of flat drawings. But I still think it carries a similar language. But it has like qualities from both, from the flatness of the drawing and some kind of aura of the manual drawing, together with the language of the 3D mesh when you see on wireframes on screens.
Yeah, for sure, it's 2D presentation, but there is a leap in that, because all these lines can be observed by separate, like a polyphony, as I spoke about.
Okay.
And combination of all of them gave a completely harmony of his drawings. That's the way how I see that, in a sense of deepness of his flat drawings, as you mentioned. But it has a mesh qualities, as you said. Nice.
So you see it in conversation with the polyphony.
Yeah, now I see. Now I maybe observe through that perspective.
What do you think, Jonathan? Would you like to jump in while you eat your carpaccio?
And he even produces sounds that I like.
Oh yeah.
I think we should also pay attention in read it at some point. I'm really enjoying this process.
I love how it has now some sound qualities. So do we have comments from the audience or questions from the audience? So Jonathan, there is some question being asked here.
So we have some comments from the audiences. From one, there's a comment that perhaps very oriented the video to the artist, and it sounds like a part of the performance of the squish sound. There's also a question from Julia that what is his influences? I remember maybe Keith Haring, does it make sense? And Eva also would like to know if the number of the lines, usually or always 5 there, is a certain representation meaning of for you, Stefano. Maybe would you mind to answer it?
I was not listening because I was in the I was outside.
You were on the other side of the Great Glass.
I was on the other side of the wall. But I think that's it. Huh? I did a very quick draw, and I hope it was not so bad for you.
No, it was great, Stefano. Thank you very much. Maybe we can go to our last part of our event tonight.
I think there is some question that probably Stefano can say something about it.
Okay.
There
in the
is
chat, Jonathan.
Yeah, there is. First, Julia was asking, what is your influence on this drawing? What is your inspiration? And Eva was also asking whether the number of the lines that you always draw.
Yes.
Either usually or always 5. Like there's always 5 lines, or almost around 5 lines.
Okay.
Has a certain representational meaning for you, like personally?
Okay. My influence in art, I really like Richard Deacon, for example. He's a contemporary sculptor. But I love the old Dutch painter too, from the 19th century. I think the influence normally are the draws I did before, and the next one I'm gonna do. Yes, of course, there's a lot of history in the background where I try to study and see and learn, but I'm trying to do my own style, and I love a lot of painters. I love a lot of sculptors. I love a lot of machines. I love a lot of softwares too. But now I think I'm trying to keep going my own way of work. And about the lines, that depends. Of course, 5, 4, 10, 15. It's not the subject. Here I did a very quick draw, and with this scale of pen and this size of screen, I tried to understand a proportion of the space, and that usually give a way for thinking and doing.
So it's also a matter of resolution.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Also, there is a last question from Miriam. Miriam is curious what are your next steps or goals in this type of project.
Okay, now I have a commission 2.5 meters by 7.5 meters for a residence, for a house. And I'm doing a lot of draws in acrylic sheets and with some kind of canvas, but drawing by hand. And then I'm gonna do with some kind of laser fiber machines and also a halter to remove some kind of material from aluminum sheets. And at the beginning of the next year, I'm gonna come back to my sculptures, and I'm thinking to work with metal again. And I think that's it. For the moment, some draws. After I'm gonna go back to the panels with some kind of machines, and then bigger sculptures.
Yeah, okay, all right. And also we have, okay, before I move to the next question, I would like to tell the audiences that they can also raise their hands. And we can allow them to speak as a panelist for a moment to raise a question instead of writing in our chat, but just in case if you would like to talk in person. I think it's probably the last question for Stefano. Estefania asks whether you can tell us more about your creative process when you want to start a sketch. Did you just start and then it comes right away, or do you have some approach before you do all your sketches?
No, I don't have any kind of approach. I just draw. And,
wow.
and it's difficult to talk about my work actually, even in Portuguese or French or English. I'm not this kind of person who are able to express in words. That's why I think the importance of the draw, it's kind of the base to do the things. Yeah. Sorry about my English. I'm not thinking very well in these days in the world like this.
Don't worry, Stefano. Thank you very much for sharing with us your work. And now we can have the last moment for this event, the first part of our 3-part Catacombe. We have Gabriel Lester, based in Amsterdam. He was apparently inspired by the improvisation of Xenia on her culinary session, and he proposed to make a video performance, putting together fragments that the participants of this evening sent to him a few hours ago. So thank you very much, Gabriel. The screen is yours.
Can you hear me?
Very well.
Good.
And we see you very well with this beautiful screen behind you.
Fancy. So what a jazzy evening, because everybody's improvising. Thank you to the previous people that performed. I have 3 screens, which might be confusing. I'll turn one off because I'm looking there, but you guys are down here. So indeed, I was inspired when I heard somebody was going to do a live creation, and not only one, apparently 2, and now me 3, to do something like that. I have to tell you a bit about myself. I've only studied 1 year at what you would call an academy, which was experimental cinema. But now I think I would be considered a sculptor, installation maker, performer, but maybe even also an architect, or at least somebody who works with large-scale sculptures and structures. Now, maybe I didn't study all those different possibilities, but I came from electronic music at a very early age. I was involved in hip hop music. My father's from New York. I grew up in the Netherlands, and Dutch people are very focused on following the US. I'm actually half Belgian, half American, but from Amsterdam. So it also enabled me with the knowledge of the city and the language of the origin of hip hop to engage there. And I'll show you something rather simple. I guess you all know this object. Now you see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes. So in the times before there was a digital way to record sound, the way to record sound was basically generally on a magnetic tape. And a magnetic tape you could physically cut and reproduce and paste and put together and create a kind of sculptural experience. For me, very important, because you will see in the fragment here after that you will see the way this sculptural project can become to life. And what is important is that by taking the physical material of the tape and cutting it and rearranging it, I not only understood that sound in a way could be a sculptural medium, but I actually understood that time could be a sculptural medium, because something that had been recorded, which was 30 seconds, I could actually take 5 seconds from there and replace it and relocate it. And I think it's the time when I was doing this is like the late 80s. And I think it's the early starts of what you would call non-linear, which is a kind of like non-hierarchical way of dealing with time, or simultaneity, if you like the word. So, traditionally, especially in production of music, you would start at the beginning and obviously end at the end, and the middle would be the middle. And this is where this logic stopped. The middle could be the beginning. One little part of a track could actually be the essence of another composition. So it was the beginning, at least for me. And I'll show a video with sound. So start waving wildly, Victor, if you don't hear any sound. This is an example of how I worked, and you must imagine that when I was a teenager, strips of tape were hanging throughout. Whoa, that was great. Throughout different layers of the house, highlighting like the immensity of the space through cords, like a web of a spider. But if there's no sound, let me know. Otherwise, you should have sound.
We have sound.
So this is why I'm a sculptor, and where I maybe could enter the world of art and architecture self-taught, because literally for 7 or 8 years, where other kids were maybe playing with toys, this was the toys that me and my friends were employing. And so what I'll do today is I've received a WeTransfer through Victor which included a number of videos, much more than I asked, actually, Victor. I mean, I don't know why you're making it more complex. And I'm going to try and make an edit out of it. Of course, it's an improvised moment, like the people before me. So if you do this at home, you may use different video clips. But essentially, I'm going to try to put together and make sense out of these fragments. So let's share that. Where are we? Share screen with computer sound. Yes. Oh, stop. Share screen. Okay. So this is an editing program called Final Cut Pro. It's probably the worst editing program you can find, and I'm stuck to it because some projects were started there, and it's also now become something I'm really easy with. Now, I haven't seen any of the clips. I did put the name there, but I will investigate them as I'm talking to you. Now, one of the interesting things of cinema is that it's being referred to as what they call the impure media. Now, this is something that I think, and I also remember sometimes the things wrong, but I think it was André Bazin of the Cahiers du Cinéma, a French movie magazine from the 50s and 60s, came with the term of the impure medium. And basically it's because, like, you would still say that painting is canvas and paint, that sculpture is physical material. Of course, we have seen exhibitions and artworks that challenge these basic notions of what a painting or sculpture is, but in essence, it has its own kind of, like, the artwork itself, dance is the physical body, theater is on the stage. It has a kind of, what, if you like, a kind of purity. Whereas maybe cinema combines all of this. Like here we're looking at a piece of Fitzgeraldo, where of course we are looking, speaking of impurity, we're looking at opera. We're looking at photography, obviously, because there's a beautiful cameraman in there. There's cinema or theater, if you like. There is choreography. There's obviously sound design, costume, and makeup going on here. So here's Claudia Cardinale, nicely made up. So already now I've mentioned maybe 6 or 7 different art forms, all mixed in there. So the concept of impurity, and that's a little bit like the concept of power. Power usually refers to something that we find really connected to the idea of abuse, like the abuse of power. But of course, the power to speak or the power to stand up for your rights is also a mention of power, and the sense of purity versus impurity is as ambiguous as maybe the idea of power. So I'm looking at this really the first time. I have an ability to scan rather fast, which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be very good, but it at least means I know what I'm looking at. Now, in my own work, I found that my films, they're very sculptural. So that means that maybe where somebody would write a piece, like have a written screenplay and then realize it, I sometimes can start with the notion of bringing people together in a certain space, creating a condition, much like the condition of the fact that you have material to make a sculpture with, and then start editing. And what I noticed in my editing is that I'm very interested in the gaze inside. Now cinema would be a medium. There's many ways to describe it, but there was a Bella Balash, I think, was an Hungarian-Austrian film critic from the early 19th century, 20th century, and he put it in a nice way. He said, "Cinema is not about showing something to your eyes, showing you something, but it actually is taking your eyes. So it actually brings you to this moment where we are suddenly close to this woman biting an apple. So it's about a gesture of lending your eyes to a film, and that is also an interesting element within any time-based media, which is that rather than you being required to give your time, like when I'm in front of a painting, I will give my time to the painting. I can say after 1 second, I've seen the painting. But in time-based, arts, also including music, of course, you cannot look or listen 5 seconds and say, I've seen the movie or I've heard the song. So there's another interesting shift that I think also returns a lot into my work, is that in a way it takes time. So not only is cinema, and in that respect what I do, a medium of taking your eyes, is also taking your time. So I'm looking at all these things here now. I don't know, Victor, can you tell us a little bit about who donated this? I see your parties are in here a few times. Victor, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. It was donated by Jonathan. But this one is a collective work. This first one came from Xenia. The second one, the junkies on the street, comes from Kai. This comes from Isabella.
What's this? What's this actually?
This is imagination of how world would be with augmented reality. This is a piece from Jonathan that is making all the technical support here tonight.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing. Now,
this is Foresight coming from my choice.
Yeah, I like Foresight. I once saw him, just a side note, sorry guys, I have as much time as I want and you can all leave. I'm not scanning participation levels, but I remember meeting this guy and he did this thing. I don't know, do you guys all know this fragment? Yeah. So Richard was talking in Venice in 2013. I was doing a pavilion there. And he was talking and he said, I put this line here. And he put the line and he showed the line to everybody. It's there. And then he said, I'll put it there. And then he continued talking and the lecture was about something. And he was also interviewed. So there was also more people's points of views and statements going on. And at some point, he turned to the audience again and said, well, let me take that line again. And in fact, it was still there. You know, and everybody understood that line had remained in place, even if it was also an imaginary line. This is a philosophical pleasure, of course, where we can understand, or at least my point of view agrees with this theory that the world is in fact perceived in many degrees, you know, when it comes to our desire and imagination. So, you know, if you think there's a reality, then part of it might be just a substitute for your desire and imagination that you have projected onto it, I would say. This we've seen earlier today. It's Victor in the party mood. So I'll tell you a little bit, some arbitrary important things. And I've been a teacher in many art schools. At the moment I stopped because of the Corona world and the Zoom obligations, which I find inappropriate. But these things, they also, what I'm going to talk about, they also apply to you know, to a poem or to a sculpture. And the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is the idea of the high note. Now, I already said it's quite jazzy, and the cooking lady, I'm not so good at names, but also mentioned the jazziness. Now in jazz, for instance, you have two distinct ways of starting a solo. So imagine a trumpet player or the saxophonist is you know, his or her moment is there to do the improvised solo, and it goes like, it can go two ways. It can, you know, generalizing, it can go da da do de do de do de do de do da do da do 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 da. So that's the highest note of the start of a solo. So I'll do it again. Do do de do da do de do 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 da. And then it takes off into its freedom, right? So it's basically the steps that the improvised musician will take in order to go to that note and then flow into freedom and, you know, let it go. Now, of course, people like, you know, Miles Davis or Dizzy Gillespie or John Coltrane, if you name like the you know, the greats of the bebop and later jazz period, they don't walk to that high note. They start at the high note. So somebody like Coltrane will go, and then immediately drive into freedom. And I think that when we're doing this edit and when we do art in general, it's not always good, but it is interesting to consider where are your steps going to lead to, and what could be maybe the high note of your project. And sometimes you don't need the steps, or sometimes the steps are superfluous. They're just that they do that lead up to that note. So maybe we try and find a high note here. I think it's pretty telling, this woman and this man. So do you you hit off the wow.
Their diplomats to negotiate the release of the POWs. This also bolstered the Bates' claim that...
So this is my highest note. So I wanted to be, I don't know if I'm dealing with what material I have, but I like to consider, what are we on, a pal? No, I'm not. I like to consider that this troubled moment is a good beginning of the film. I erased the sound for the moment because it has a voiceover, and I think that maybe to emphasize the kind of second reality that is looking into this, it starts with the closed eyes and then looks at us. It doesn't have to close again, but can go there. Now, what might be interesting for you guys to know is that in narrative cinema, one of the key figures to create the drive, there's a few. One of them is the setup and the payoff. I will talk about that. But one of the other key elements of the drive of a narrative piece, so it can also be music, especially when you want it to be upbeat and tempo, or you want to have mystery or suspense, is very simple. It's the idea that you have to come late and leave early. So if there's a scene, an exciting scene, it's not that you see somebody walk to the door, open it and come in. So it has a little bit connected to the high note idea, but actually you have to be at the moment he's already, you still notice that there's a door, but it's been opened already and somebody comes in. So you're late in the scene and something happens, but you don't stay till the end. So you have to be just out early. And so it's interesting for all of you to remember that that this principle of coming in late and leaving early is one of the drives. Also, if you know funk music, the notion of being on the one it's usually played if you want to hang into a beat when it comes to funk or jazz or hip hop. Also, it's best not to be exactly on the one moment, which is the moment that basically is the corner of your square, if you think about a 4-square beat, but to actually be a little late, so that you're pulling every time the number one sound comes on doom beginning, you're always pulling you're pulling your listener or your audience into the moment. And then of course leave early is also good. So here I thought 2 people in the beginning, they looked worried. These people obviously they're in touch with something we don't understand directly. So we want to put them in here. And then, so now we've established two worlds, and I'm going to go on a little bit more, see what I have here. This could be nice there, maybe because of the fact that we also not aware of the exact meaning of this. Is rather long, I notice. So sometimes when I look at clips like you're seeing here, I'm more looking at the length of them. Whoa, no, that's okay. So I spoke about the rare and the specific, and the leaving early and arriving late and leaving early. I think this could be connected to that actually. And now I'm going formal, of course, on you. So I'm going to take this shot. I like it here. It can be short, but maybe let's see what it does when I put it there. What happens now if I do? So you also hear my audio, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so let me detach the audio and put it under there. Okay, now we have rhythm, right? Even though we don't feel a beat or anything, we do have rhythm. So now we want them maybe to be in the rhythm. No, that doesn't work. So I need to do something here. One of the interesting things I also like that somebody has said to me about, I don't know why I cannot increase my size. It's because of the zooming, I think. Okay, but that's okay. So I didn't like this one. One of the things I like about this idea of editing, which I also think Stefano might recognize and also the cooking also emphasizes that when you cut things in video, it's actually a cut that is a connection. So I've never used it as an artwork title, but I've always enjoyed the idea that editing is basically the cut to connect. So it's the cut that I make so I can connect. And I think that, you know, sometimes maybe in life, maybe sometimes the cuts we make are new connections. It's late, I've been drinking, but I do support that notion. So the cut that connects, guys. Yeah, that makes sense, this one here. Now the happy part should be. Does anybody know what fragment this is actually? What am I looking at?
The couple?
Huh?
The couple?
Yeah.
The couple comes from Super Studio idea of a utopic society that you could connect everywhere from everywhere and you could live anywhere and everybody would be happy just to have like a connection. Which it was like this idea from the late 60s that some people would say it fits with the internet.
It what?
It would describe the utopic idea of the internet, that you could be anywhere and you would feel comfortable to enjoy your life. You just need a node to be connected.
I'm trying to get you away. Okay, so connected, we're still doing that.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Blend mode. Let's do lighting. Let's see about this. So I don't know. It's the difference between doing this with the live audience is, of course, that I can't really hear you when I ask you something. Which means that I don't know how many of you know how to video edit. But maybe that's good because maybe you think.
I think most of the people are not very familiar with video editing. And what is the reason of video editing?
I'm not super happy with it, but let's see what happens here. Yeah, let's look at the video clip. Sorry, guys. I mean, that's also what editing is and sculpting by editing. I have the benefit that the Fado didn't have, which is I can erase it and go back. But let's go maybe to one of these scenes. We're looking up, which is something we did. Now, in cinema, another thing that happens a lot is what you call a pickup and or setup and payoff. This looks like the ending, right? Yeah. Setup and payoff.
What do you mean as that?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it, but I'm trying to figure out where I have to end this one. It's quite long also. I'm going to put these ones to the back. I'm going to illustrate that to you. Where am I? Oh yeah. Hi guys. So I'll tell you the story. The setup and the payoff, the most important element of narrative tools, if you like, and it's the way to create mystery, to create something that moves the narrative forward, but most of all, to create a connection between the storyteller and its audience. Now, I'll give you an example. There's a man we don't know who goes into a train, and in his right hand he has a brown paper bag. He sits in the train and he seems to dream away. And when he's at a station, maybe it's the 5th station that we've seen, he realizes late that actually this is a station where he has to get off. And so he runs off the train, but he forgets his brown paper bag. And this is already a moment where we as an audience are like, hey, you're forgetting your bag. But he gets onto the train platform and he meets his brother, and they hug, and he asks, how bad is it? He says, it's pretty bad. I think Dad doesn't have a lot of time to live. We should hurry to the hospital. So they get in a cab, they hurry to the hospital. They arrive there, and the father is no longer in the hospital and he has disappeared. But they hear, I'm improvising now, from a nurse that he was actually picked up by somebody in a long blue jacket. Yeah. Okay. So this is our story. Now, when after this, a train conductor finds a brown paper bag, he doesn't know where it's from. We know. We are an audience. We've seen that a man left it there who we don't know really, but we know his father was probably ill and has now disappeared. And we know that he went there with his brother, that he went into the cab. So we know actually a lot of this person because we have been given the story, but the conductor doesn't know this. And the conductor doesn't know what is inside the bag, and neither do we. So this is a system of setup and payoff. We identify with the bag because we know the story that unfolded after it. We identify with the train conductor because it finds something that we don't know its content, neither does he. So it creates a web, which is what you call a setup and a payoff. It's basically you set something up, you leave something in the story, like a paper bag, and then you find a moment when it pays off, because later in the story, the conductor who took the paper bag, and he's a really nice guy or girl, didn't open the bag, because he's a, that's not his or her, how to say, style. But at some point, the bag will be opened, right? We know that, so we know it will pay off at some point. So this is a little story for you to. The same happens in music. It's like if you start a song that goes do 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 do, and then goes da da do 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 do. You find a moment where it pays off. You condition somebody in the beginning of time, and then you pay off later in time. Yeah, it's a wonderful way of composing, because also when you think about architecture, it allows you to think like, well, if they come into a place, I'll use this type of marble, or I'll use this type of light, or acoustics, or way shadow appears, or light. And then I'll lead people through the building, and then at one point, that same marble appears as a kind of payoff for the time that has been transferred within the space of that architecture. So it works in everything. You can ask me questions. I have to maintain my search for my video, so I have to also concentrate on this little job.
And people in the Zoom session and YouTube can also ask questions. I'm pretty sure they have a lot of it. So how are you building your paper bag right now?
Well, of course, I'm distracted by my own storyline, but what I first did is I wanted to give you the sense of people are going somewhere.
I'm curious, why did you choose this scene as the high tone?
As the highlight, as the high note.
Yeah.
Well, I was honest. I hadn't seen any of the clips, so I had to go with something at the start of the session. But it's not only that. To me, it doesn't flavor the narrative a lot. It doesn't give you, like, if you take the dancers in the beginning, or if you take Jonathan's work here, in a way, it taints already the direction that you're going by creating a universe that you identify. Of course, this is a universe you identify as being probably diplomats. They could be from a spy movie. It could be a documentary about United Nations people, but the fact that they are on their way and that there's still some ambiguity as to who they are, the reason that they're going somewhere is already quite interesting. I mean, a lot of these shots, I'm also hesitant to use Fitzgeraldo because I know it so much, but these shots are, well, this, for instance, is mostly people standing still. This is interesting, but then I'm annoyed by the subtitles. They give me a visual, how to say, I don't like, they kind of put me somewhere that I don't want to be. Yeah, this could have also been a kind of highlight. I mean, because here somebody's laughing and there's something to be celebrated. So we know that I'm giving you an insight to a world that in a way is either never going to be explained or it's going to make sense at the end, right? So this is what this image as a viewer suggests, that whatever is happening here, it is leading us somewhere. And I think that there was a little bit the same with this cooking party. What is it? Your food. Netflix, I saw in the beginning.
It's a fake film from fake advertisement for Netflix.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it sarcastic?
It's a little bit sarcastic.
I'm not sure if should I use that? I mean, Netflix is so important to all of us. I'm kidding.
Oh, wow.
So I pulled it away. I'm not going for the funky images yet. So I don't know if that answers your question, Victor, but the reason I was attracted to it, and the same goes for these kids and maybe for Klaus Kinski, is that it's interesting to start something with an eminent evolution. We are aware that this object also, everything's traveling. Either people are seeing something, so either things are traveling into people, like the eyes of the kids and the eyes of Fitzgeraldo, or we're traveling with people. So it's a combination of journeys that I'm proposing as a beginning. This makes this also, what is this actually? It's probably a dance.
This comes from Ksenia, our chef.
Yeah, hi Ksenia. Sorry to not remember your name. I apologize. So let's see what happens when I start here.
If I'm not wrong, this is an opening of a movie.
Yeah, that could work. Let's see where we now. See now, if you repeat that, because she's so present, we get another sense of something's happening, because there's a kind of hysteria almost happening there. Or hysteria is not that, but there's a kind of like where these people are considered to be in a kind of reality. Obviously, these ones are in a more theatrical world. I hope you're happy. I'm using your sound, Jonathan. I'm going to stop doing that in a second, because I have a folder here that I don't think you can see because it's not open. I can share it with you guys. No.
I chose a video because I thought you would like. That is side by side Hitchcock chasing scene with Wes Anderson chasing scene that is completely referencing to the first one.
Yeah, but it's the double screen one, right?
Is that was yeah.
Yeah, I can use it, but then I will zoom into it because so now you see I'm in one of many sound libraries. British birds, always a beauty. Bang, I wonder what bang does. Probably goes bang, huh? Okay, we'll not use bang today. Ships and boats, that's nice. We're there with them. Arriving at dock. Ranging snow and stuff. We'll see. I'm going to fuse some things with the sound of Jonathan. General atmosphere, washing fish deck. Adventures, Greece. What is equestrian events?
This is fun.
This is the BBC. I have them. I have all of them cracked. Hollywood, BBC. I don't know, hundreds of gigabytes. That's the benefit of having interns from a younger generation sometimes. Hunting. Let's make it exciting. So let's see what this did to me. I'll share it again. So, pretty scary. Yeah.
So Jonathan, what do you think is happening here?
I don't think Jonathan's there actually. I'm just trying to entertain you guys, so I hope it works. So now, you know, all the tricks in the book. I'm going to...
So we have a comment from the audience addressed to Gabriel. There's a comment from Eva. While explaining the setup and payoff technique, I thought it inevitably comes with narrative and meaning. As we build up association to it, can you see narrative without meaning or cinema without narrative?
Yes, very easily actually. But of course, narrative, in a sense, I think when we talk about art, one of the most important things I've encountered in the years is that there's a line between your intentions and your message. Now, if my intentions are narrative, and if the message isn't, then that's when a narrative is basically not functioning. So you might say a bad story. However, if my intention is not to be narrative, it doesn't mean it could not be understood as a narrative thing or project. So that means that in the intention I have made, and I'm very interested in non-narrative cinema, but I don't know if that also is the same thing as the message of these pieces. And that's because people have a very strong desire to make sense out of what they see, and of basically identifying a narrative in something that maybe is not there. But let's try to look at what the narrative is then, because before we go into a discussion, like it's very easy for people to walk in a landscape and say it is like a story. It's like a narrative. It's very easy for people to listen to a symphony and say it is a narrative. But both things, the landscape and maybe a symphony, I don't consider the way we would consider traditional narrative. So I would agree with the fact that we can attribute the concept of the idea of narrative to a landscape. But I think it's exactly there where I am finding what other people might call non-narrative. So can cinema be a landscape or a symphony? Yes. I don't know if that satisfied the answer. I was playing on this sound here with some extra sound effects, because then I don't have to look for if, of course, I go into a sound library, I get a different sound, but I can also play with the sounds that I already have from the space debris. Let's see what the results do. Jesus. Okay, I have to go and stop share screen because I can't increase the size of my. No. Sorry, guys. So now I have bigger clips. You see that?
Yeah.
See the size? I couldn't change the size of my clips. Now this is interesting also for you to know, is that when you listen to this, you notice that it seems to flop inside the sound. It seems to kind of like now in sound editing, also just like a practical little knowledge, you always, and now I am possible to zoom in, I notice, you always come in just slightly before. So it's because I don't know what your brain exactly does, some people know,
Wow.
but you always enter the new sound 1 or 2 frames earlier. Listen. Let me see if I put it a bit more. I don't know how big I am actually, but let's see. Yeah, you still have it, but that's because we're on cheap sound. And then I think it should be louder.
Because if you do it, you have like the idea of cut as connection.
Well, the thing is that what we're listening to now is very cheap sound. So you hear a little, so you hear that the sound is turned on digitally. So there's a little tick, which is annoying. And I can take it away with some effects, but it takes too much time. Now, the reason why you put the sound slightly before the image comes in is because the speed with which your mind processes it. If you come exactly at the same time, it feels the sound is late. And that's because apparently you're visually faster than you are with your audio. But it's like milliseconds, but it's what you notice
And do you have an idea of what kind of genre or
what?
Of what kind of genre or style you are composing?
Now?
Yeah.
No, no clue. No. I'll go to your Hitchcock. Tell me again why you selected this fragment.
I selected it because there is this idea that Anderson was talking with someone that was already dead. So it's a conversation between different generations that finishes in different ways. So if you go to the beginning of the scene,
Which Anderson are we talking about? Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, or Roy
Wes
Anderson?
Wes Anderson.
I like him the least. I think Roy Anderson and Thomas Anderson are my more favorable directors, but it's popular name in film world.
It's true.
Yeah. So continue. It's like there.
So I like it. I like how he copies Hitchcock, and how he referenced like completely clearly. So it's a conversation, not between the director and the audience. It's a conversation between different times, different generations.
I hear you.
So in Hitchcock movie, the main character escapes because he hears.
Paul Newman's character.
Yeah, the guy who was chasing him.
So you see this also, it's like, I don't know, it's not exactly come in late and leave early, but this shot definitely doesn't wait for the door to open, because it's open already, and it doesn't wait for him to turn left or right. So it keeps us a little bit in suspense. He could even run back and go into the door. If he would have run left or right, we would have known that he would be out of this area. But he remains in this area in this shot. It's a good example.
Hi. Hi, this is Miriam. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit more about rhythm and if there are any particular rules you are following, or is it intuitive?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm one person, of course. One thing comes to mind. It's a side comment, but I'll give it to you because it's funny. There's two types of art forms people say that are always destined to be impoverished, which is architecture and cinema. I'll explain that. So you would think that a poet, whenever he or she adds a word or a sentence to the composition, it reaches more perfection, more completion, more balance. You would also maybe think that of a painter, that in fact every piece of paint added in his journey to the final stage of the painting is basically a process of enrichment. And the funny thing they say about cinema and architecture is that it's always perfect on paper, but then it is impoverished as you progress. Now, having said that, in response to your question, I mean, it's not a flattering thing to say, but obviously editing and composing, they do cater to a desire to have a certain control. And I think the analogy to jazz music is very important also for me. And that is that I really like to set the melody and the rhythm and the harmonies. And in order to find the freedom and the high note and to dive from the high note into improvisation, I need to know these basic things like, you know, the melody, the rhythm, and the harmonies. And sometimes the melody is not so important, and it's just the harmonies and the rhythm. And sometimes it's just the rhythm or the harmonies. So, you know, but at least these set things are very important. Now, practically speaking, I set up compositions from a kind of common sense idea initially, meaning that, you know, when you meet somebody and you kind of meet each other at the restaurant and you're friends, and you know, and you put the bottle, and then your knife goes to the right, and you put your glass there, and your mobile phone, and there's one moment where everything is in the right place. It's not really easy to explain how this moment is arrived, but you have this sense, which is a kind of common sense you have, which people would call your language or your style. But mine is also quite rigid. I mean, it's also thinking about, what is the skeleton of what I'm doing? So it has to kind of support the flesh and the bone and in the end the soul. But I think about the skeleton, and I can do that very, very meticulously, create the skeleton of what I'm working on. But I make sure I find ways to document it so I can completely destroy the logic of the skeleton as I'm creating, the flesh, the body, the soul. And a simple way to do that is that when I do a storyline, which whether or not it's abstract in the sense of a landscape or a symphony or concrete in terms of a narrative with characters that have certain goals in their life, I put everything on little. I have them here and little cards. So, and then everything's there: sounds, smells, looks, camera angles, colors, and I make this common sense out of it on a table. So I have these 100 cards lying there, and there's common sense lying for you, and that's how I organize it, and I feel comfortable. And I take a picture of it, which has enough resolution so I can read every card on the table, which is not so difficult nowadays. And then I get high or angry or drunk or horny or frustrated, and I just start reshuffling everything. No, shoot. And then I put high notes and or low notes, and I really deconstruct the whole logic of that common sense part, which is documented. So I mean, the cards are not going to disappear, the photos are not going to disappear. I can't destroy it. I've made the logic one. And then I let these things influence it, and or you look with another, you talk about it, but in honesty, a lot of the like human, like energy, such as frustration or desire or being high or drunk or whatever, these things I let into a project. So not today.
And do you do the same thing when you do architecture? You have your cards with like ideas of effects, and you rearrange it. So you have like a narrative and reshuffle
Well,
it.
in fact, I mean, my architecture is not that complex as my narrative, so it doesn't need that really. But there's a similar process that I follow in my mind, which is, I think one of the reasons that I have been able to do my work for over 20 years and I'm still, approached by people to make new projects is because I'm really good at focusing. So when I'm doing a project, I am able to organize it and then keep the structure and also then frustrate the structure, but not lose the notion of the organization in my head. I mean, we've worked together. Sometimes you hear me like, I can't talk, but that's because there's so much that's being kept inside. That sometimes the talking part with people can be hampered by the fact that the structure that I'm keeping in my brain and at the same time I'm frustrating is a lot to handle at once. So let's look at this. I'm going to soon stop. I don't know if it has made any sense so far, but let's see. We are at, I don't know how many seconds now. Let's see. So I'm using some dissolves. I'm fucking around basically. The sound should of course not stop, otherwise it ends there. Let me see. Shall we go till a minute, guys? Any more questions?
Jonathan, do we have more questions?
Yeah, so far we don't.
Excuse me?
No, so far we don't have any questions, but we're enjoying.
Are there still participants left?
Well, there are still a lot.
Oh, thanks, man.
No, I think it's very valuable because we as architects, we are not so used with the tricks to build narratives. And we are all into narratives, like modernism is a narrative, the way of explaining a project in a rational manner is a narrative. So we should be more engaged into the tricks that you are presenting to us.
Well, I mean, because I've been how to say, tutor at art school also. Here, this is our end. I've been involved in many architectural departments in Hong Kong, in Amsterdam, also in Frankfurt. But these things they're very common for the same logic. I mean, starting on a high note, basically is also pushing yourself to say like, well, what is actually, where do I want people to arrive, you know? And sometimes a building, you just have to have the guts to take people the moment they are in contact with it to the actual place that you want them to be. You know, if you take a wheel, there's an axe inside, and sometimes you want to be in the center point of what everything revolves around. Sometimes you want to revolve around it, but I can point at many architecture projects where you feel like, you know, if that particular essence or note would have started the architectural building or would have been present, it would have made it more characteristic or more powerful. And then, of course, this idea of cut that connects, that's something very common in architecture, is that, in fact, you know, whether you call it sections, and there's, of course, elevations and the whole way you view it, but you are constantly deciding where certain lines are drawn between walls, chambers, corridors, floors, and you're always thinking, I mean, especially with the building, but also in urban design, you're thinking like, so how do these cuts that I make connect the logic of the whole piece? Well, I'm looking at the list I wrote down. So arrive early, leave late is nothing else than to say, it's like keep people hungry, you know, don't saturate people with a good idea. I mean, it's very interesting to see that the architects that we desire, our desire is always to have more of them. You know, the ones that we don't fancy so much, there are exceptions, of course, but they have saturated our appetite in a way that we are not like, well, yeah, I know this architect, but I've had enough of what this company or this person does. So, you know, we keep people hungry. And then the concept I was talking about, in a way, how you have to think about that you are taking people's time rather than people giving it to you. You know, you have to go through a door, you have to go through a door. So you're basically dealing with, you know, time theft. You know, you're stealing time from people. You know, architects are. And then, of course, pick up and pay off, which I mentioned. It's like, well, you know, what do you do with the materials and the forms and shapes, the volumes that are the first things that people experience? What do they mean in the long narrative of your architecture? So, you know, if you start bright, you know, do you end bright? If you start with a certain material or with a certain experience, what does it? You know, how do you? If you set that up, if you set up people feeling really comfortable, you know, and then there's still things to happen inside the experience of the building or the landscape. You know, how is this comfort then met in your logic? You know, is it reintroduced? Is it like countered, and so forth? So I mean, the rest of it got blurred because I knocked over some wine in the earlier stage of this talk. So shall we look at the movie?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, it makes me remind of this Brasilia chapel, the Brasilia church cathedral experience that you are in this crazy sun of Brasilia, and you are
I've been there,
obliged to go inside this tunnel, and you have this experience of darkness. So you are waiting for the sun of the cathedral again, and at the moment that you get inside, it blows your mind, it blows your eyes full of light, and so yeah, there is a narrative there, but it's not so clear how you build it, and you are showing it very clear for us. You think that your carpaccio, visual carpaccio is done?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's a talking piece, and the interesting thing for me, and I hope for you guys, is that there was zero intention, because I didn't know the clips, and you can verify I downloaded it as we had this program, so I couldn't really go through it. So there's something interesting about going into something without intention, but still creating message. And at the same time, I wrote a few things down, and I probably forgot a few that I've learned over the past, which I think, in a way, I showed you in the beginning, I started by cutting up physical audio tape. And throughout the years, I've discovered these things about what cutting means. When do you start? How do you introduce something? The things I was just repeating. And I think they have a quite universal application in all of the creative arts, also in the way you prepare food, definitely the way you serve food. How do these things connect, and what introduction do they get, and do they start on the highest note with Sichuan pepper or not? So I'm gonna watch the movie and we can talk about it. And here it comes. Oh, you see yourself also? Wait a minute. Is this screen in screen?
Yeah, we are seeing full screen.
Okay, then here we go. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. Do you have time for one single question?
Yeah, no, I mean, the kids are in bed. I'm in my studio, not at home, so I'm free.
So we can open for Eva to make her question.
Hi. I think it's actually very interesting and very fascinating. And I was wondering, I mean, it's very clear in the process of making a video that technique sometimes serves the purpose of a narrative. But I was wondering, like, as a viewer, where do you aim? Like, do you aim people being captivated by the technique as such, by the narrative? Because it's also very easy to fall into the trap of explaining or associating all the techniques into a narrative, And yeah, like I was trying to think also of the art. Like if you go to and you watch, if you're in front of a painting, for instance, sometimes you're focusing on the narrative, especially in earlier paintings, when there was a story to be told. But in a video, for instance, because there is a time sequence, it's inevitable to not build a story, right? So technique usually serves a lot of the storytelling, but like I wonder if there is any such a thing as story, like almost no storytelling, but with technique, Like
Well,
how
yeah,
do they?
of course, there's the formal editing things where like music that is like, which is like non-melodic, and you can do the same with glitch type of videos and stuff like that. I don't. Yeah, what can I say? I mean, on my website, you can see some of my films, and there you need to ask me for the password by mail, so I can share them with you. But in a way, what I think is interesting, because you cannot escape that images are in a way interpreted, is that you can shift the focus from character and plot and narrative and what goal do people have, or what are they striving for, what is the image trying to achieve. You can shift away from that and let form in a way be dominant or prevail. I don't know, has any one of you seen L'année dernière à Marienbad, or Last Year in Marienbad? Well, so in a way, was a result of what was called the Nouveau Roman, so the new novel. And the new novel was a 50s kind of wave in France, but also abroad, where in fact the aim was not to create narratives, but to create moments or atmospheres or moods. So yes, you can travel in cinema through moods, but then you cannot exclude people's interpretation of them in a narrative sense. I personally have a rule for my art, which includes all the types of art that I do. And that is that if I can solve my art in my mind, if it can be simple, so much plus so much plus so much equals that, if that happens, I don't make it. Because if you can make an artwork that you personally feel you have resolved as the artist, not its composition resolve is one thing, but its meaning, if you can resolve its meaning, so not the composition, that you can, but if you can resolve its meaning in your mind, in a way, it is the thing that I am not interested in. And it's not all artists have that, because obviously if you're an artist with a message which is political, then of course, yes, you want to resolve your meaning, because that's what you are saying. You're talking about your meaning. I compare my art a lot to like what you would call flexing the mind or brain gymnastics, where it's rather that your mind becomes lenient and able to stretch and understand concepts that are either political, cultural, social, or philosophical, or psychological, and so forth, but that they don't pose these dogmas themselves. They actually invite you to train the brain in order to distill out of information, your personal ability to understand. So I want to make unresolved work, and that's where the videos work for me, and not all. I mean, I make many mistakes.
So in architecture, we would say that you are more in the side of troublemaking than into problem solving.
I'm married to an architect. She always says that. She says that architects solve problems, artists make problems. Maybe. I guess so.
Do you have any other participation from the audience? Or should we all chill now that I'm slightly drunk?
Oh, we have a question here from Anna.
Yes, I have a question that is like more a general one, and I think partially also already touched this. But I was wondering, what is for you to create something new today in the contemporary zeitgeist when we use the kind of ready-mades and the what the culture already produced? What is for you to create something new? What is the secret ingredient which you add as an author to create something new, which is different from what existed before?
I understand the question. Well, let me be a little bit arrogant, maybe, but I asked also Victor to repeat this, and it's on my bio. I refer to myself as an inventor. So, and then people ask me, what do you invent? And I say, yeah, well, normally art. But the idea that I want to approach my practice from the concept of invention is the fact that I'm looking for something original. And when I was doing my early music, I noticed that I had a band, and then there was another band in the same neighborhood, and they were repeating very popular beats and popular tunes. And they had the audience loved it because the audience has already established a relationship to these tunes, and they are familiar with them, and then that's a reason for them to appreciate it. So they were very popular. And I was very clear with the crew or the group we had, like, you know, we don't take pastiche from things that already are in people's consciousness or subconsciousness. We try to create something new. Now, I'm still like that. The secret ingredient, you know, if it's a secret, I can't tell it, but well, if I look at the artists and people that I really admire and appreciate, those are the people that have established their own vocabulary. Now, many artists, if I talk about the art world, for instance, there's many artists that are in a certain scene, you know, certain scene, which is a certain way of dealing with sculpture. It's fashionable. You can say, oh, that's very 2020. It's a kind of scene. It's nothing wrong with that. It's really beautiful because it represents also aesthetics and ways to communicate that relate to our generation or the generation before. And we'd say, oh, it's very hippie type, or it's super techno, or whatever. And the people that I really appreciate most, they have focused their practice on the development of their personal vocabulary. Many writers, of course, have done this. And the interesting thing about creating your own vocabulary, how to say, like, art can be something very vertical. That means that you might want to travel to the essence of what you make, and you try to approach this. Like my stepfather, he was into sculpture, and they were all geometric artworks. And so he always was very concerned, but he was also very high, and he enjoyed so much to travel to the essence of something. So it was a very, very vertical practice. And then, of course, you have a very horizontal practice that also exists. And it's never one or the other. Sometimes it's a combination. But of horizontal, we would think of like Bruce Nauman or David Bowie, or people that are so many things next to each other. And in that line, in the development of your horizon, so the vertical is the development of your message, of your intention, of your of your character maybe, or whatever. So vertical, but the horizontal one is the development of that language. And of course you have your horizontal world travel deeper into the vertical essence of who you are, what you want to say. But in general, when you develop your horizontal practice, you develop language. And I think that's where you can become original, because it's only you that can say it that way, because it's your language. And I think many people are borrowing a lot of languages, and people are very popular at that. But it's not very original.
So, yeah, thank you very much for. Was not just a presentation and not just a lecture. It was like a full class.
Sorry.
No. I think we are all glad, and I am for sure very glad, because I'm very interested on the techniques of telling stories and all these tricks. Because these tricks, they are, at the end of the day, how you really tell a story. And I think we are all interested on it when we are doing architecture, when we are talking about spatial effects, and when we are talking about aggregations of space, and even when we are legitimizing a project, it's always some kind of narrative. And I could be here for the whole night. But well, I think that it was beautiful, and I think that my skills as a master of ceremony are over already. And the only thing I can say is to thank you very much, Gabriel, and to thank also for Anna. Let's just ask the last question. Anna Arliapova and Jonathan Sutanto, that has been in the background making it work. And to invite everybody for the next event, that will happen on 12th of December in a similar but reformulated way from what we learned from today. So again, the Catacombe is also always an experimentation on ways of sharing and putting works in the world. And I'm very happy personally from what happened tonight. And I hope you also. And I don't want to finish with my voice. Maybe you guys can also say, hey, thank you, or whatever. Thank you very much, Gabriel. Thank you.
Particularly participants that participate in the culinary workshop. I think it doesn't, it wouldn't work without all the participants. Yeah, actually, we would like the participant to engage more on the conversation. But of course, it's very limited on the medium. But I would like to invite everybody, as Victor said before, for the second event on the 12/12/2020. It will be on the, it will be mostly dedicated for the American continent time zone. So it will be a little bit late for us in Europe, but this is the plan.
Yeah. So this is it for tonight. See you all in 2 weeks with Jonathan as the MC and more experimentation on this format. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening, everybody, or day or afternoon or whatever.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Thank you, guys.
I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefano. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Milos. Thank you, Ksenia. Have a nice evening.
Have a nice
You too. You too. Thank you, guys.